As a child, I always found comfort with people. It gave me this sort of feel in which I found comfort. Any scares I would have would go away with people. Whether it be in fear of monsters or vengeful spirits, the joyful sound of the garage door to my house always made me happy. Being an only child myself, I was always scared because I did not have what I always wanted besides me. My room is where I spend my days. I had a daily pattern: go home, do homework, walk up the stairs, go down the hallway to my room, and wait. I would find comfort in playing games online in which players may speak to other players. Voice communication was the best I found for me. While playing those games, I would wait for that great sound of my garage door opening. My dog would bark, my mom would greet my dog, and I would then greet my mother when I walked downstairs and welcomed her. This day was not the same as it usually was. While playing some Team Fortress 2 and playing my favorite class, the Spy, the same player would always find me and kill me. Even if I was invisible, I would be slain by this person. Strange, I thought, until I heard the voice. I am always watching. It was very creepy. It had a deep pitch to it, and it almost sounded like it was all the people could hear. People saying "what the F" and "what the hell" filled the side chat. I got freaked out, then closed the tab and went on YouTube and started to watch funny videos. I then thought the guy was just kidding the whole time to try to explain that to myself. Around 30 minutes later, after watching the videos, I heard the glorious sound of my garage door opening. I can tell you I was relieved to hear the blissful sound of its opening. I then heard the door open and my dog barking, as usual. But then, I heard a sound, a faint cracking sound, and the dog stopped barking. Weird. There wasn't any sound of my mom saying hello to my dog. Silence. What the hell is going on here, I thought as I began to get up from the desk. But at the very moment, my router went out. Now I was getting scared. I ran down the stairs. All that I saw were muddy footprints. No sign of my mom or my dog. Except for these footprints, they were red, dark red. They seemed to drag off into the router room. Around this moment, I was freaking out. I started to yell, "Mom!" as I walked over to investigate where the footprints led. The footprints led through each other. One pattern seemed to lead towards the garage door, so I walked towards it. I found that the door was open and so was the garage. I freaked out and ran. I ran straight towards the router room so I could call the police. Dead. It was staring right at me. My dog's corpse, its neck flung to the side. I started to cry and dialed 911. They sent a police squad right over. They investigated and I called my mother and she immediately left work to come to see what happened. She came back and we hugged and cried together. The investigators started to look around, and as they went into the basement, we heard yelling and a gunshot and they scurried back. They called back to the station to ask for assistance to dispose of a dead body. They then told us what they saw. They found a hole, a large hole in which a human could fit through behind our old wardrobe. A 50-year-old man lived in our basement, and judging by the amount of feces and urine in the corner of this hole, he had lived in there for a while. He would steal a small amount of items we would not notice. Cans of food, small water bottles, toilet paper, minimal things in need for survival. He also had a computer on which he probably played with me. But the scariest thing was they found my personal items: used shirts, food wrappers, strands of hair from one of my brushes, toothbrushes, fingernail clippings, photos, and even flash drives of videos me and my friends would make when bored. He was obsessed with me. When they investigated more, they found out that he would use my computer. He knew my Steam name. He would look up through my history and go through my files while I was at school. They found out his name: Joseph Meyer, a son of a German immigrant who went missing around the age of 14. While looking through DNA files, they found many cases of murders linked to him. All around my age, they had been murdered around 1.5 years to 2 years with him living in their house. All of them were killed and then sexually abused. He was apparently plotting to attract me by opening my garage door, then he would murder me. Fortunately, he must have thought I had a friend over and ran back to the hole. My mom got a job in which she would stay at home to help comfort me. To this day, I always check my house everywhere in case another man may be living in my house. Since I was 17, I have had extreme scopophobia and am barely able to sleep to this day. This story takes place when I was 22 years old. I had just gotten home from a long night of stocking shelves at my local grocery store. I worked the closing shift, so I usually got home around midnight. I shared a cheap apartment with my roommate, Mark. We weren't in the best of neighborhoods, but I just felt lucky to have a place to live that wasn't my parents' basement. I threw my jacket on the coat rack next to the front door and walked into the kitchen to rummage through the fridge for something to eat. I had just pulled a frozen burrito out of the freezer when I noticed something weird. My bedroom door had been slightly open when I walked by the hallway. I know this doesn't sound strange at first, but I specifically remembered closing it that morning when I left for work. I like my privacy, so I always remember to shut my door when I leave for the day. I stepped back into the living room and looked down the hall. "Hello?" I called. There was just dead silence. Not wanting to let the fear get the better of me, I walked across the living room and flicked on the hallway light switch. "Mark, is that you?" I asked. Mark had always been a bit of an odd guy, so I couldn't help but think that maybe he was trying to play some sort of weird prank on me. Maybe waiting to jump out of my closet or something when I entered my room. When I finally got to the bedroom door, I gently pushed it open. The light from the hallway illuminated a large portion of the room. I looked around, definitely feeling the creepy vibes. There was no one there and nothing looked out of the ordinary. Just the usual, my twin bed with my nightstand just to the left. I closed the door and walked back into the kitchen. I popped my dinner in the microwave and pressed the start button. While that was cooking, I turned on the television, ready to put on a scary movie to watch and relax. Suddenly, I heard a muffled thump coming from down the hall. At first, I thought it was the neighbors or something. They can be pretty loud sometimes, and it's not unusual to hear a loud bump in the night. But then it happened again, and this time I could tell for sure it was coming from down the hall. "Mark?" I called once more. The microwave beeped just then, and I nearly had a heart attack. "Yeah, sorry, dropped something," I could hear him say through the door. I'll admit, I felt a little better knowing that Mark was home. I walked back into the kitchen to get my food, and that's when my phone vibrated in my pocket. It was a text message from Mark. "Hey dude, running a little late here at work. Could you please leave the door unlocked for me?" My stomach dropped to the floor and a chill ran down my spine. I texted back, "Wait, you're still at work?" He responded only a few seconds later. "Yeah, why?" At that moment, there was another noise from the hall, and I looked up. The silhouette of a large man was standing there, holding what appeared to be a butcher's knife. I turned and ran towards the front door, hearing the heavy clunk of the man's boots behind me. He wasn't running instead. It sounded like he was slowly walking, taking his time. I didn't stop to look back. I ran down the emergency staircase and out into the parking lot where I called the cops. The cops showed up just a few minutes later. They went upstairs and searched my apartment, but they said they didn't find anyone. What they did find still terrifies me to this day. As they were searching the apartment, the cops found a note left on the kitchen table, held under a salt shaker. On that note, only one word was written: soon. While growing up, I often had opportunities to stay home alone when I was younger, since my mother and father were forced to travel because their parents were ill and lived overseas, and my siblings wouldn't get off work until at least an hour or two after I finished school. I was used to being home alone and actually enjoyed it. One Saturday when I was 12, my parents had to go to a funeral for an old friend in the next city. My brother had already moved out by then, and my sister was nowhere to be found, so my parents decided to leave me home alone for the entire day. I was so excited. Being home alone for a whole day meant I could blast music and spend as much time as I wanted on the computer. When my brother moved out, we converted his bedroom, the last one at the end of the hallway, into an office, and my computer was in there. We still had dial-up internet at the time, so my parents added an extra phone line in the house so I would stop taking up their line. I ran into the office to use what I called my personal phone line, to call my friend who lived a few streets over to see if she wanted to come hang out. She was really upset. She told me she was having boyfriend problems and needed someone to talk to, so she'd be right over. I thought to myself, girl talk means we need a good treat, and ran out of the office so that I could go check out what was in the kitchen. That's when I saw her. A pale woman dressed all in black with a black bun on her head. Her head tilted as I ran by the corner. I couldn't really see her eyes, but for some reason, I remember thinking that she was smiling. I got some serious chills and felt instantly frozen, but I ignored it thinking I was paranoid from being alone all day, and ran down the stairs. I couldn't believe my imagination was playing tricks on itself like that. I called my friend to see if she had left yet, and since no one answered the phone at her house, I figured she had. Something still didn't feel right, so I put on my jacket and headed out to the driveway to wait for her. When she arrived, she asked me what I was doing outside. I said, "Something weird just happened, but I'll tell you over white hot chocolate." And we went inside, took off our coats, and drank our hot chocolate in the kitchen while she told me about the problem she was having with her boyfriend. Since both her boyfriend and I had webcams and we knew he had friends over, we went into my computer room upstairs to call him and see if he and his friends wanted to web chat with us. While she was on the phone with him, I was talking to his friend on the computer and setting up my webcam. While my friend was on the phone, she turned around and looked out the door into the hallway. She told her boyfriend that she'd have to call him back. She looked at me, wide-eyed and white-faced, and said, "There's a woman in your hallway wearing a black dress." I got up from my computer chair and closed the door without looking into the hallway. I frantically tried to remember if I had told her why I was outside when she got there. I then asked her, "Didn't I mention that when you got here?" And she said no. And I said, "How was her hair?" And my friend said, "In a bun." We both freaked out, opened the door, made sure the coast was clear, and bolted down the stairs. I called my parents and told them I was going to my friend's house, but they told me they were a few minutes away and insisted that I wasn't leaving the house. When they got home, I told them what happened, but they didn't believe me. For the next few days, I kept thinking I was seeing her, but I wasn't sure if it was my imagination because I was scared, or because she was really there. Weird things happened too, like the calendar in my bedroom would be upside down when I got home from school, or things would go missing from my room. Eventually, these weird occurrences stopped, but a couple of months later, we adopted a 2-year-old cat. From the moment she was brought home, all the way up to today, she has 3 or 4 random corners of the house that she meows at constantly. And every once in a while, after meowing at a particular spot, she shrieks and runs away as fast as she can. One of these spots is in my bedroom, and lately, she's been meowing at it every night.